everyone, and welcome to another episode of Neighbors Helping Neighbors podcast, brought to you by the Robertson County Democratic Party. My name's Kaylee. I'm here with my co-host, Morgan.
Hello.
And this week, we wanted to talk about just kind of protesting in general and kind of why it matters and why it's important to just show up to protests when they happen. But as always, before we get into the topic for today, I'll have some dates and announcements. Not a lot going on this week, so I know I've been keeping everyone updated on the immigration package that's been moving through the Tennessee legislature. Unfortunately, I apologize, did not have time to look into all of those dates and when those hearings are going to be this week prior to recording this episode. But as always, I will have those dates in the description of exactly time, place, committee, all that good stuff about when these hearings will be as the bills make progress through the legislature. And then as far as important dates for the party, again, not a whole lot going on. On Wednesdays every week at about 8:30-ish to 10, 11, somewhere in there. I'm not sure exactly when they end, but there are weekly protests outside the Robertson County Sheriff's Office. These are ICE out protests, so just protesting the presence of ICE in Robertson County and the actions they have been doing in our community. And then on Saturdays, there's also a weekly protest on the corner of Memorial and Tom Austin at 1. It ends at 3. You can park in the Belk parking lot, and they just kind of meet on that corner there. That is just kind of an open invitation to protest, kind of whatever is on your mind for that week. That is not a specific themed protest. Just come out, make your voice heard. And then the only other important date to keep in mind is next Monday, April 6th, is the last day to register to vote in the upcoming May primary. So please register to vote. Check your registration, even if you've been registered for years and never had any problems, especially with the actions this administration has been taking regarding elections so far this year. It is not unlikely that you could just be purged from a voter roll. Your registration could be inactive for whatever reason. So I have a reminder in my phone for the morning of Monday, April 6th to check my registration and make sure it's still active. So even if you think you're registered, please double check by the 6th. But that is all the important dates. The only thing I wanted to additionally call out is a big thank you to everyone who was able to make it to the No Keens protest yesterday afternoon. We had a great turnout, great support from the community. And I think that's a good segue into our topic for the day is, again, why it's so important that we all show up in protest. And kind of the first thing I want to mention is just my surprise, I guess, if I'm being honest, at the response to the protest yesterday, just from the people driving by, the people who maybe didn't necessarily even know it was happening. I would say, we probably got, for every middle finger, thumbs down, negative comment, whatever it was, we probably got 7 to 10, honks, shouts of encouragement. There was so much support from the people just driving by who were resonating with what was going on.
Yeah, and in case you don't know, with modern protest culture, usually honking your horn very loudly over and over again, that's a sign of support. And usually if you don't support them, then you stay quiet or you throw insults and profanities at them through your window. And we had about, probably at the peak of No Kings yesterday, we had about 200 people, which pretty good turnout for local Robertson County. That's pretty good. Not gonna lie.
Mm-hmm.
We had quite a few speakers. We even had a gubernatorial candidate come out and give a speech.
Jerry Green.
Jerry Green. So,
and I believe Jerry is spelled Jerri, I want to say. So if you want to look her up, it's not a common spelling of Jerry.
Yes, the Democrat candidate for governor. Go look her up. Absolutely. But it was it was surprising to see how we had more support from passersby than we didn't. And those that came through that didn't support, it really wasn't that bad.
No, it wasn't.
And I guess that's my first point about protesting is that the administration does make you want to think that going out to protest can be dangerous for you or that it could be a waste of your time. And first of all, no, the one in Springfield, for example, was very polite, very benign. Um, Heck, we even made room on the sidewalks for passersby who weren't part of the protest. Like, you didn't even need to be a part of it, and you could go right through it without getting bothered. So, most protests that you go through to are a community-based, very safe experience, like, especially with Indivisible. With their protest, they'll have safety officers there to make sure that, like, no one's trying to mess with anybody else, and if it's a really, really big protest, then there will be organizational reps telling you, where you need to
Mhm.
be, what's going on, when the protest is ending or when it should end and such. It's not one of those experiences where you're gonna get hurt.
Yeah, and even I don't wanna say there was a police presence. That makes it sound like they were kind of, visible and actively seen, but, I noticed a few Springfield City police cars driving by, Robertson County Sheriff cars driving by, just making sure everything was okay, but there by no means was it a, like, forceful, intimidating presence.
Yeah, no, but to give you a hint, they were driving by because they had to stop at the red light stop
Mhm.
by the courthouse and watch us for a couple minutes, and then they went on their way.
Yep.
So, it's very open to come and protest in Springfield, so go ahead and get out there. And I guess there's just always been this mentality of protest culture getting demonized when it really shouldn't, because it gets conflated with things that are not protest culture. For example, um, most violent action nowadays is not protest culture. And in the history of protest, we very peaceful protest is very much a way we figured out to show our displeasure at the government without having to burn things down and to resort to violent action. Because at the end of the day, that's really what you get when you do not allow peaceful protests like the ones that happened yesterday with No Kings. If you don't allow that to happen, then inevitably you're going to get the violent version of that. And
People are gonna protest whether you want them to or not,
yeah,
so you might as well let them do it peacefully then.
yeah, and that's the one thing is like if you don't let the people stand out with signs and protest peacefully at the location of their choosing, then they're going to resort to different ways of protests that might be more annoying, because overall, that is the point of protest. The point isn't so much for the individual protester to feel better, but for the protest as a whole to be annoying enough to the powers that be that they have to pay attention to our grievances. And protest culture, like the culture you see in the United States, really kind of came out of the Enlightenment, which before the Enlightenment, protest like that really wasn't allowed in a lot of places. Dissent was very much cracked down upon by monarchical powers, kings, queens, regencies, empires. None of them liked it when the people came out and said that they were doing a bad job and that they needed to change. And you see there's a long historical string of peaceful political movements getting cracked down on by authoritative governments, and that in turn turning into a guerrilla action or a civil war over time, because the problems that those people were protesting still existed. And if the leaders aren't going to listen with peaceful means, then, well, what else are you going to do? So that's why I am very much a supporter of peaceful protest, because frankly, I know what happens when you don't allow peaceful protest, and what happens isn't good for anybody, and it's especially not good for those in power. that's that's just kind of how it is.
Well, and I would also argue that protesting is a way to make your opinion known when it is not election season. Like, really, at the end of the day, what politicians generally care about is getting your vote.
Yes.
And the only way they can know where you stand with what they are pushing, what policies they have, what they stand for, is if you let them know what you want to see. And a very easy, common way to do that is by showing up to protests. If a No Keynes protest has two people at it, the politicians are probably going to interpret that to mean, well, the people don't really care that much about what message that protest is standing for, so I'm not going to pay that much attention to it. But how many cities across the US yesterday had protests that had tens, if not hundreds of thousands of people showing up?
Yeah.
When you start showing up in volumes like that, you're almost forcing the politicians to pay attention because these are your constituents. These are the people voting for you. And this is obviously something that they care about. So you should make your policies reflective of these things.
Yes, absolutely. And just a little quick side tangent point. No King's reception is been incredible from what I've been able to see. They were protesting Donald Trump in Paris,
Yep.
like France, Ireland, England had a protest in relation to it. So absolutely massive, massive protest turnout. And when it comes to protests like that, I'd also like to talk about some protest etiquette, just so kind of because I have a feeling people don't really know the ins and out of what is peaceful and what
Hmm.
is not in a protest. Because for one, the government constantly tries to conflate that because especially nowadays, if the government can get a protest branded as a riot, then they can shut it down. And like for example, the obvious things, catching things on fire is not protest. That is riot behavior. Smashing store windows is not protest, especially not peaceful protest. Um, and going around trying to start fights with police who are shadowing protesters, that is not protest. That is just trying to instigate the police to shut down the protest. And like for example, part of protest culture is when you show up, yes, bring a sign, but also like bring additional signs for people who may not have what they need to show up to the protest. And also look out for each other a lot. Be looking out in the crowd because, for one, especially with really huge protests like in the big cities, bad actors can be a problem. I mean, heck, is even as far back as the Bible with the good old governor of Judea, Pontius Pilate. He was recorded as using instigators to break up the Jewish protests over the coin of Tyre. So it goes all the way back to ancient times of people being inserted into the crowd or people being allowed into the crowd who have violent intentions. And so good protest etiquette is to watch out for those people. And if you see people trying to stir the crowd up into violent intent, to let the protest organized heads know about it as soon as possible. And also, if you're going to do a protest like on your own, try to have some sort of organized structure around it. Like if there is no protest head, maybe become the protest head. You need some form of a security team together to make sure that the protest stays within its bounds and that it follows local law. Having someone advertise it would probably be a good idea. So just having a structure helps the protest be successful so much more than deciding I'm just going to show up with my friends and a bunch of signs and whoever joins, joins.
Well, because, too, at the end of the day, sure, it is like I was talking about, it's about sending a message and making an opinion known. But it's also about forming a community and knowing
Yeah, yeah.
who you're with and who's on your side and who around you is there to support you and help you. Like, yes, it's great if you and your, five friends put something together just with you and go stand on the corner for, an hour or two. Like, that's great. But then you're not meeting new people. You're not engaging your community. You're not reaching out to those that maybe are on the fence or independent or don't know which way to lean or are unhappy with the way things are going now, if you don't open up that experience to the community, the movement can never grow.
Yes.
And I think it's also a good just internal motivator, like being at No Keen's yesterday. That right off the bat, I mean, maybe the first 5-10 minutes into the protest, it was not long. A lady comes up, rolls her window down, and starts yelling about how, ICE is the not illegal. They're the ones getting rid of the illegals. Like, she was doing her rant from the car window at the red light. And some people in the No Keen's crowd just responded with like a "we'll pray for you" or "God bless you," like just trying to be a positive. But then the more she kept going, literally the whole crowd just started booing her. Just this loud boo, and she eventually rolled up her window and shut up. And while I don't necessarily, I would prefer the "God bless you, we love you, go on your merry way and leave us alone." That sense of all of us, that giant crowd of hundreds of people just yelling boo at someone and it made her stop. Like that fills you with a sense of pride and enjoyment almost in your community, knowing that you have the power to shut down these narratives when you come together. And I think that's an important, just like I said, an internal motivator of like, it doesn't have to be this way. Like we have the power to change things when we do come together.
Yeah. And I guess that brings us to the second really big utility for modern day protest movements is that the protest itself is a great networking opportunity. If you want to be a part of something, if you want, because I hear so many people online where they say, well, I want to do something to help, stop this administration or to make this country a better place, but I don't know where to start. Well, the best place to start would probably be to find the next protest that's going on, show up to it, and then start talking to people.
Mhm.
Maybe the protest organizers have a job for you to do, have something that you can do within the local party structure. That's how we got started. We just showed up and then they started giving us work. like, which, by the way, all volunteer. Just getting that out there. But with the it's a great networking opportunity and it lets you know who's out there who also is like-minded. Like, I know that especially down here in the South, you can very much feel like a blue dot in a sea of red,
Mhm.
and that you don't matter because you're surrounded by opposition, and that very much leads to the feeling that you should just keep your head down and keep your beliefs
Mhm.
close to your chest. And, well, unfortunately, keeping your head down like that doesn't lead to positive change. That's what they want. They want the Democratic population within red states to stay silent, stay unconnected, stay isolated so that we're just not a threat to them,
Mhm.
electorally, especially, and just societarially. Because part of what a protest movement is also doing is just getting general ideas out into the culture that may not be there. Like, I was hearing a lot of statements around education at the No Kings protests, and it was very obvious that there was a lot of people that felt like that Robertson County was not caring as much about education as they could have. And that protest was a good way for them to get their grievances out to like-minded people and people who were not like-minded who were driving by, and the powers that be when that might not be in the public discussion beyond buzzwords and, politicians giving loaded statements about, oh, of course we care about education. And then you see they don't do anything about it.
Well, and even just being able to hear stories from people who have access to see different parts of the community. Neither of us are educators. We don't have children. Like we are really in no way connected to the school system in Robertson County other than just being supporters of a, solid education department. So being able to hear teachers get up and speak and share stories about how kids are coming to school in tears about, because they're in fear about their parents not being home when they get home from school because they've been taken by ICE. Like that is such a emotionally impactful story And to the point that the speakers were making yesterday, how can you expect kids to retain anything and pay attention in school when they have all of these other things to worry about from a home perspective? So even just going to a protest and being able to hear people speak about things that you're not necessarily exposed to can help open up just your worldview and see even more reasons why a lot of what this administration doing is harmful to our communities.
Yeah. And here's another quick thing I want to state with protests. You don't have to be aligned with the protests to go and hear them out. You can be a disaffected Republican, you can be an independent. To show up to No Kings, you don't have to be a Democrat or a liberal to do that, because especially at the protests we went to for No Kings, everyone was very much on the level of, we will be kind to you no matter how you treat us. It is not a dangerous thing for someone
Mhm.
from the other side to come to. And it could be a great way for you to find out what the grievances are in the community that you might not have gotten from a one-sided, biased media apparatus that your party's a part of. And I mean that on both sides of the aisle. Like, like peaceful protests, from what I've seen, a vast majority of the time is peaceful.
Mhm.
In fact, half the time, especially nowadays, half the times when you see a protest get broken up, it's because the police have
Mhm.
found some very narrow excuse, usually one person behaving badly, in order to break it up. And just saying, it's, even if you're not a Democrat, even if you're not totally against everything that Trump is doing, you can still show up and hear people out and have conversations about it. Who knows? Maybe you'll learn something you didn't from people who are paying attention to different things than you're paying attention to.
Yeah, I mean, even the variety of signs that people had yesterday. I mean, some people had signs about ICE, some people had signs about education, some people had signs about the war in Iran. Like that, it is not, other than maybe those weekly Wednesday ICE out protests I mentioned. For the most part, these protests are, if you're upset about anything, come out and make it known that there is so much to be angry about right now that you don't have to necessarily pick one thing or be upset about all of the things. If there's even one issue that matters to you, go join the protest. That's what it's there for.
Yeah, and that leads me to my third point about protests, and that it's a great longevity device. I see so many people, especially online, state that everything's so overwhelming and they're unable to get their feelings out about how overwhelming everything is, that they just give up, that they turn away from politics because it's too much at the moment. Well, I've found that going to a protest and letting your voice be known, shouting with the people, sharing that space with people who, you know, think about the same kinds of problems in our country that you think about, well, that's a great way to feel better about what you're doing within this situation and the situation as a whole, because it gives you some hope. And that's the real thing, is that opposition to an authoritarian figure like Donald Trump is really going to be run on hope. It's going to be run on people's ability to get out there, basically on pure willpower, in order to change things for the better, because we've only really got us. Like, right now, he's got the power of the executive branch on his side. So don't expect any real police departments or authority figures to suddenly tell you that they're going to make everything all right. Like, it's up to us. So protests can be a great way for you to feel heard, feel seen, and to get some of that anger out so that you can operate, so that you can come to a healthier mental space within your mind and do something concrete about the situation. Like, that's half of our motivation for being here. Instead of yelling on social media and being sad and depressed about the situation, we're going to show up and talk about it once a week, and we're going to show up to the protests, and we're going to keep asking people, how can we help through those channels and avenues? And so far, we found places where we can help, and so can you. And a great first step for that is to show up to the protest and get all of that emotion out so that you can look at the situation much more clear-eyed after
Well,
you're
and
done with it.
as one of the, I forget which speaker it was yesterday, so apologies for not being able to give credit, but as one of the speakers put it yesterday, history has not been made by the people who sat idly by and just watched things happen. Like, you do not sit by and let history happen. You make history, and you be the change that you want to see in your communities. So by joining these protests and getting involved in and being active in your community, you are writing the story that, your kids and grandkids are going to read decades from now. It's we can't just sit here and let all these things happen.
Yes, absolutely. Um, it's one of those questions that you always hear from history classes and history books of like, oh, well, where didn't these people see what was happening whenever you read about an authoritarian takeover? And oftentimes the separation between those who cared and those who didn't was those who got out. And those who went to the protest, networked with the people at the protest, found where they can truly help, and then continue. And then maybe next time was helping organize a protest. And then next time, maybe they were helping get a lawmaker elected, which, by the way, just always going to remind people on this podcast, that's the first step to how we fix things. Elect Democrats into elected positions, vote for Noah for county commissioner. Absolutely. Vote for Jerry for governor. Get out and vote blue on the midterms, because that's how we really get power back. Anyway, just getting that out there. But and how you may be found out about which local candidate you want to vote for is they may be speaking at a protest. Like, we had plenty of speakers from a local county commissioner up to a governor at our little 200-person protest, which for Springfield wasn't that little, let's just be honest with you. We had half of the courthouse wrapped around, so pretty good there. But it's a great place to find what you're looking for in this political environment if you're feeling like you need to do something about it.
So, that being said, we hope that has motivated you to come join some of the protests that between the Robertson County Democratic Party and Tennessee Indivisible. We kind of, various people host various protests, but we're all working together for the same goal. So hopefully we'll see you on Wednesdays outside the Robertson County Sheriff's Office. See you on Saturdays at the corner of Tom Austin and Memorial. Then I am sure there will be a future No Keens. I don't think there's a solid date for any future No Keens, but I'm sure there will be plenty more to come if things stay on the way they've been going.
Yeah, and just some information for people that are protest related. Here in Springfield, especially, if you want to get in on the protest, pay attention to the Robertson County Democratic Party. Also, pay attention to Indivisible. Those are the guys running the No Kings protest series, in case you didn't know. Indivisible.org. There is also another protest movement that runs protests with and independent of Indivisible called 5051. You can just type that into Google. It will give you what you're looking for on
and
that.
And to be clear, that's the numbers. It's like 50501.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. And those two, along with the Democratic Party, I guess those three are the three main pillars of protest currently in the country. So look those three up, and they'll probably have a link path for you to find where you need to look for your most local protests and where to start. So with that being said, get out there and protest, get out there and vote for Democrats. for the
Check your
next
voter registration by
Yep.
next Monday.
Check the voter registration. They can absolutely purge you. And by the way, if the SAVE Act passes, then the first step of the SAVE Act is that everyone's going to have to re-register, which means a national purge. So
that'll be a future episode, maybe, because
yeah.
there's a lot in the SAVE Act that
just get out there and protest, get out there and vote. If you don't know who to vote for, get out to the protests. Maybe you'll find out who you can vote for. And keep up the fight, guys. Everything's run on hope here, and we need that. Thank you all for listening. Hope you have a good day.